I grew up in California until I was 14. Our neighborhood wasn't safe. The Crips lived nearby and everyone knew to stay inside after dark. My best friend, Stevie D, lived 2 doors down. We spent most days riding bikes and playing games. But one night, when we were 12, we decided to do something stupid. Check out the old abandoned house at the end of the street. No one had lived there for years. The windows were dusty, the porch half rotted. We stopped out front, and Stevie suddenly whispered, "Look." In the window, a pale face stared back at us through the curtains. It didn't move, didn't blink, just watched. We thought maybe it was a Halloween decoration, so we went around back to see for ourselves. The door was unlocked. Inside, the air was cold and smelled like something dead. When we reached the living room, we saw it, the head from the window, sitting on the sill. I picked it up. It was heavy, warm, and then blood started dripping from it. It wasn't fake. It was real. We screamed and ran out of there as fast as we could. Later, the police said the head belonged to a man the Crips had killed, left there as a warning. But what still haunts me most is remembering those faint creaks above us while we were inside. The cops said there were fresh footprints upstairs. Whoever left that head there was still in the house. It was a stormy night, the kind where thunder rattles the windows and the rain never seems to stop. Everyone in my family was doing their own thing. My parents were in the living room, watching TV, my sister was upstairs playing video games, and I was in my room half listening to the rain while watching a movie. Usually, nights like that made me feel calm, safe even, but not that night. Out of nowhere, there was a loud, heavy bang on my window. I jumped up, heart pounding, and turned toward the sound. A man was standing outside in the pouring rain, soaked from head to toe. I couldn't see his face clearly through the downpour, but I could hear him shouting something about being hurt. His voice was muffled by the storm, but his pounding on the glass grew louder and more desperate. I cracked the window open just a little, and he yelled again, begging for help. The rain and thunder drowned out most of his words, so I shouted back, telling him to go to the front door. I closed the window and ran downstairs to tell my dad what was happening. Within seconds, we heard another round of pounding, this time at the front door. The man was out there yelling, demanding to be let in. My dad was about to unlock it, but something about the man's voice made me uneasy. It didn't sound like someone asking for help, it sounded angry. Then, the phone rang. It was our next-door neighbor calling. My dad answered, listened for a moment, and I watched the color drain from his face. He quietly told us to stay away from the door. He pulled the curtain back just enough to peek outside. The man was crouched near the porch, pounding on the door again. That's when my dad froze. The man was holding something in his hand. It looked like a large metal tool, but when lightning flashed, we saw it clearly. It wasn't a tool, it was an axe. My dad yelled for him to leave and immediately called the police. The man didn't move at first, he just stared at the door, rain dripping from his face, his eyes dark and hollow. Then, without a word, he backed away and vanished into the night. Later, we learned from our neighbor that the same man had been in his backyard earlier, rummaging through his shed, and that's where he'd found the axe. The police eventually caught him wandering a few blocks away. A few days later, we saw his face on the news. He wasn't just some stranger caught in the storm. He was an escaped patient from a nearby psychiatric hospital, one who had been locked up for murder. That night, every time thunder shook the house, I kept thinking about the sound of his fist on the glass, and how close I came to opening that window just a little wider. I've always loved extreme sports, mountain climbing, scuba diving, skiing, you name it. One winter, my friend Hugh and I went upstate for a camping trip so we could try backcountry skiing. That means skiing in wild, unmarked areas away from resorts. After a long drive, we parked near a hill, unpacked our gear, and hiked into the woods to set up camp. Once everything was ready, we started skiing. The snow was deep, the air freezing, and the woods were completely silent. At one point, Hugh and I got separated on a big hill. I thought we'd meet at the bottom, but he didn't show up. I tried him on the walkie-talkie but only heard static. While I was waiting, I saw another skier walking toward me. He wore a ski mask and had an orange backpack with skis on it. He sounded friendly and asked if we were camping nearby. I told him yes and even pointed to where our tent was. He said he and his wife wanted to camp close to others and asked if I could show him the spot. I agreed and started leading him there. After a while, I noticed my walkie was still giving off static, like Hugh was trying to reach me. When we got back to camp, I asked the man, "So, where's your wife?" He didn't answer, just started walking closer. That's when I saw it. His gear. It looked exactly like Hugh's. He kept coming toward me faster now. My stomach dropped. I rushed into the tent, digging for my flare gun. Suddenly, I felt a sharp pain in my leg. He'd stabbed me. I screamed, grabbed the flare gun, and pointed it at him. He raised his hands and backed off, then ran into the woods. I fired a flare into the sky and called for help. After what felt like hours, a rescue helicopter found me. They found Hugh too unconscious on the hill, stabbed and robbed. We both survived, but I still remember that man's voice, calm, polite, and pretending to be something he wasn't. I used to babysit when I was 14. It was just a way to make some pocket money back then, simple jobs, easy cash. But there was one night I'll never forget. I was babysitting a 6-year-old boy named Cody. His parents seemed nice enough. They gave me the usual instructions: order a pizza, don't let him stay up too late, and whatever I did, don't let him go into their bedroom. Then, as they were leaving, his mom paused and said something odd. Cody might act a little different than other kids, she told me. He has an imaginary friend named Agnes. If you hear him talking to someone, just ignore it. It was raining that afternoon, hard enough that the windows rattled. The air smelled like wet earth and thunder. Cody sat on the living room floor surrounded by toys, quietly talking to someone who wasn't there. Every now and then I'd hear him giggle or whisper, "No, Agnes, it's my turn." I tried to brush it off, flipping through TV channels until I landed on some old episode of Wipeout. The laughter on the screen felt strange against the sound of the storm outside. Then, something happened. One of Cody's toys, a little cube-shaped game that needed a crank to turn on, suddenly lit up on its own from across the room. The mechanical worry echoed through the silence. I froze. That toy took effort to start, and Cody hadn't touched it. Slowly, I turned toward him. "Cody," I asked, "how did that toy turn on?" He didn't even look up. He just said in a quiet voice, "Agnes is playing with it." A chill crawled up my spine. I got up, walked over, and switched the toy off. The storm outside grew louder. The lights flickered once, then steadied. I told myself it was nothing, just a kid with a wild imagination. But as the night went on, the name Agnes kept echoing in my head. Around 9, I tucked Cody into bed and went to clean up. I was in the bathroom washing my hands when I heard a soft, slow knock on the door. "Cody," I called. No answer. The second knock came, louder this time. I opened the door, but the hallway was empty. Water dripped from my hands as I stepped out. That's when I noticed one of the doors at the end of the hallway slowly creaking open. The sound was long and deliberate, like someone was pushing it from the other side. I turned off the bathroom light. The air felt heavier now. Step by step, I walked down the hallway. Inside the room, the darkness seemed thicker then. I saw him. Cody was sitting on the bed in the far corner, his small body still, his eyes locked on me. "Cody," I whispered, "who opened the door?" He tilted his head, and in that same calm voice said, "Agnes did." My heart dropped. I didn't wait another second. I scooped him up and ran to the living room. Every light in the house stayed on until his parents came home. I didn't tell them what happened. I didn't even want to think about it. But when they called a few weeks later, asking if I could babysit again, I never called them back. Some nights, when it rains like that again, I still think about that moment in the hallway, the creaking door, Cody's quiet voice, and the thought that maybe, just maybe, Agnes was real.